some of the players that we've got are considered in and amongst the best players in their positions in world football. Marco Correa is arguably the best left back in the world. Reece James is England's best right back for sure, and in the conversation with one of the best kind of right backs in world football. Caicedo in the conversation for the best number sixes. Cole Palmer on form on his day in the conversation for one of the best players in the world and a future Ballon d'Or winner. Esteval, people are talking about Esteval winning the Ballon d'Or in the future already, and he's 18 years old, which is absolutely nuts. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. It's still the international break. It's still boring because there's no football. So in light of that, I have recruited my good friend Kai from Behind the Dugouts to come and talk to me on another podcast style thing today. And today we are going to talk about the ownership, BlueCO. It's time to talk about BlueCO. But before we get into it, Kai, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Back again. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, it's a topic that I don't tend to talk too much about, especially while the season's going on. But being that the transfer window is just around the corner, and there are definitely some things that need to be sorted, and like myself, a lot of you guys watching want to be sorted. It is time. It's time to talk, not just about the negatives. You know, there are some good things that have happened, but the overarching negatives are the biggest thing that is surrounding the ownership at the moment. I think we can all say that.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's definitely a nuanced conversation, isn't it? I know there are a lot of BlueCO abolitionists out there who just absolutely don't want them anywhere near the club. But, you know, it is about, you know, like you say, taking the time to look at the bigger picture, to zoom out kind of thing, and really look at, okay, so, you know, we can not be happy about a lot of the decisions, and definitely we're going to talk about some of the things we're not happy about. But in the grand scheme of things, is it going well, and do we want to keep them around? And not that we can change that anyway. So, Kai, let's just get straight into it, man. Talk to me about BlueCO.
Well, you know, when you're talking about BlueCO, man, it's kind of like a split, because when you look back to when they first took over, right, it was pretty much Todd Boehly the face. Todd Boehly was everything, and that was kind of how it sold. We knew in the background there were these other people. And since time's gone on, and we've seen a massive shift. But in the beginning, with Todd Boehly, the idea, what was being sold to us at the time, you know, with them buying the club, debts being wiped clear by Roman, thank you, Roman, coming in with a fresh start, a fresh slate. And that is what when they come in, we were expecting big things, because they're coming off the back of Champions League and a quite successful reign under Roman. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
And it's definitely a reasonable topic. And it got off to a very turbulent start. And one of the things for me that highlighted an issue straight away was the fact that there was no sporting director employed at the club straight away.
Yeah, you know, and this
is exactly Todd Boehly hired himself as the sporting director, and this is something that he has done previously. So when he took over Red Sox, he did exactly the same thing. For a time, he took over and was the sporting director. And for me, when you're coming into an institution like Chelsea that have won so much, that are looking to kick on, not just stay where they are, they want to, you know, push for more honours and things like that, and us as fans want that too. You should have all of this sorted before you sign on that dotted line to take over the club. At least an idea of what you're going to, you know, who you're going to bring in, and not, it kind of felt to me like he was coming to play in something he thought was going to be easy. It didn't work out that way, clearly. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, kind of the same, man, to be honest. It was definitely... It was a bit nuts. Like, I remember thinking about, you know, the other guys that were linked to us at the time as well. And out of all of them, I think most people were, because there was like 3 or 4, because they've got the sporting director, or not the sporting director, sorry, the owner's fit and proper test or whatever it is, haven't they? That, you know, you have to go through this rigorous amount of stuff. Now, they introduced that after Newcastle got bought, or just before Newcastle got bought, actually, by Saudi. And what were we linked with? Like, was it Was it Qatar?
It was a Saudi, a Qatari, and the Ricketts, who was
Yeah,
like
the
an
Ricketts.
absolute no,
Yeah.
and then it was Bowley, and I want to say, what's the guy that Ineos,
Oh, Jim
his
Ratcliffe.
name?
Yeah.
That's it. I think he was part of it. He petered off
Yeah,
very
yeah,
early, but there were rumors, and there's been rumors about him for quite a while. But those were the main three in the Qatari, Saudi side, and then the Ricketts and Bowley. So out of the three,
I think we were all pretty, like, we were
yeah,
leaning
in
towards
the
Clear
video
Lake, weren't
that
we?
was being told to us, that was, that made the most sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Saudi, the Qatari side of things, we knew they were bringing in buttloads of money, because we've seen Newcastle became the richest club in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah, what you're saying.
definitely an interesting one, man, and it was one of those as well, wasn't it? Because obviously the main difference between Chelsea and Newcastle is, with that kind of money available to you, you have to have the means within the club to spend it. So it kind of never really mattered how much money the person was bringing in, as long as it was enough to match
Yeah,
the current club's level. Do you know what I mean? It didn't really matter if it was, maybe the Qatari or the Saudi buyers had more money than Clearlake did, but it wouldn't have made a difference either way, because you have to work within the constraints.
yeah,
So yeah, for me, from the off, it was just like, it was definitely, I mean, and there was talks about projects and stuff for a long time as well, wasn't there? It was very much, it was evident even before that we were taken over by Clear Lake that they weren't going to come in and try and be Roman 2.0. They weren't
yeah,
just going to, hire and fire. Well, I say that, hire and fire managers. We can get into that a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
later, but that wasn't the idea. Do you know what I mean? To look for the biggest names in management, and just to spend huge amounts of money on the most ready-made players in the squad at the time. So, going into it, it just kind of, it felt, I guess, as good as it could have done, because I don't think there were
yeah,
realistically loads of better options on the table than what we got. And they spent 3 billion on the club, man, at the end of the day, didn't they? So, do you know what I mean?
yeah. We'll
It
definitely
kind of,
dive into
yeah,
the
yeah,
money
yeah,
side of things,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. But no, from the off, it felt reasonably good. Like, I was sad to see Roman go, but the truth of the fact is, just with that as well, Roman hadn't been massively connected to the club for a few years before he left. Do you know what I mean? Because he
Yeah,
lost his work visa in the UK. He wasn't allowed to live in the UK anymore. He had to live in Portugal.
yeah,
He'd kind of offloaded a lot of the general day-to-day running of the club to Marina Granovskaya and Petr Cech, obviously, who worked underneath her and stuff as well. So even a few years before Roman left, like, it felt a bit disconnected from him already. Do you know what I mean? So it was just kind of nice to feel these guys want the club and they're going to be in it running day to day. And I'm not saying that was down to Roman. It wasn't a choice. I get that, but just to everyone wants an owner that is into the club. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Um, so let's talk about the negatives first, man. So it started turbulently, like you said. That's absolutely true. But what in particular do you think went wrong out of the gate?
the the signings at the start, which we're still seeing the impact of right now,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's what, 3 something years down the line, and that was basically, I mean, we can, if you think back to that time, he was going out going, I want Ronaldo, I want this. It was one of those where it was a kid in a candy shop, and he was
yeah,
just looking at the transfer market, probably had it open on his laptop every day going, yo, that player looks all right, let's take him. Let's go for some of the biggest names in football, and let's try and get them, give them some ridiculous wages. We'll pay some ridiculous money. And we ended up selling pretty much all of them, and still trying to get Raheem Sterling in particular
yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah,
because it's not worked out for whatever reason. And this has, they came in with the talk of a project and an
yeah,
idea of a project and what they wanted to build. The first summer window, or the first transfer window that they had, didn't look like a build. It looked
no,
like, let's you could say similar to the Roman way, where you're spending big money
yeah,
because you want to push on. However, it's not like they didn't really look into the signings that they were signing, if it was going to fit. They had obviously some communication, because Tuchel was the manager at the time, and some of
yeah,
them may have been for him, and we can
yeah,
talk about what happened and
yeah,
why a lot of these signings just made no sense after what they
yeah.
did with
After the
Tuchel.
fact, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, the repercussions of what we've seen because of those signings and because of what they did. I mean, for me, the biggest thing they did in that summer window, because I think that's where they gave Reece James, didn't they? His big
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
that time period when they first come in was
Yeah.
probably the best thing that they did, to be honest,
Yeah.
in that window. That
I think
what
you've
about
hit
what are you
it
thinking?
perfectly, man. I think you've hit it perfectly in terms of it feels like they came in with a lot of money and not a lot of experience and ideas about how to run a football club. At the end of the day, it felt very much like Koulibaly and Aubameyang and Raheem Sterling. It felt a bit like Football Manager, didn't it? It felt a bit
Yeah,
like, oh, I'll get
100%.
that player because the game tells me that his stats are good, and that and obviously there's so many intangibles about what helps a player to settle in and stuff. And I'm not sure about, well, Sterling maybe. Koulibaly, I'm not 100. One thing about Thomas Tuchel is he kind of outwardly was quite honest about the fact it's like, I'm not really up for being that involved in
Yeah,
transfers. Do you know what I mean? He's happy to have stuff run by him, but he doesn't want to be in control of it. He wants to give a profile of a player. He wants them for those players to kind of arrive. So I think that's kind of what they tried to make happen. But yeah, it was just mismanagement at the end of the day, wasn't it? Like for Todd Bowley to come
yeah,
in and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna give Raheem Sterling 300k a week, even and there's a reason at the end of the day that City were looking to move him on, and Jack Grealish was obviously favoured at
yeah,
the time and stuff. I was excited about Sterling when he came in, because just if there was any chance of him kind of hitting those heights again, do you know what I mean, in our Chelsea team. But at the same time, it was like it wasn't just the signings they brought in; the whole of our team, which is pretty much gone now, other than Reece James. Do you know, actually, I think Reece James is the only remaining member of the team that we had when they took over.
yeah.
It was just like it's always going to be a really, really turbulent first season, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing it now with the likes of Liverpool, where they've made
Yeah.
massive amounts of signings,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not quite clicked. And it pretty much was the same thing. We made loads of signings in that period, and we have continued to do so down the line. And we're expecting it to click instantly, which it doesn't work like that. And people being in football and being around football would understand that and would know
Mm-hmm.
that and not make these such big wholesale changes, but
Yeah.
they didn't, and they were clear. So they were underprepared,
Yeah.
100%
Yeah. For sure.
underprepared, and
Definitely.
and it was found out very, very quickly.
Yeah. So that's like obviously we've talked a little bit about like the negatives of when they came in, and
Yeah,
obviously the mismanagement and the crazy signings, and the it was quite turbulent in towards and getting into the project that we're in now. Just to stay on the negatives, what do you think is negative right now? Stuff that's going on, do you know what I mean? Regardless of, whatever
yeah.
we've won or whatever has happened, like what are the negatives about where we still are right now?
To be honest, with this whole idea of a project, I get it on one side. I can
Mm.
see what they're trying to do
Yeah.
in terms of like the end goal to create this super team in a sense,
Hmm.
really, like the Man Cities that go on the 5-6 year bounces of winning Premier Leagues back to back. However, it's still the same problem with the approach and how they are doing this. They are going down this clear route of just getting really young players with super high potential and
Hmm.
hoping these players become those players. And we have
Yeah, yeah,
had
yeah.
a few occasions where some players have worked out pretty well for us, which we'll
Yeah.
get onto in a bit. But the experience needed to mold these players is something that is not in this squad, not
Yeah.
enough.
No.
And for me, there is so many people making these decisions. Like we've got Paul Winston, we've got all these sporting directors, and they're all looking at all different things. And how many of them are actually on the same page? Because when I look at some of the transfers we make, I look at some of the profiles that we're looking at, and you sit in that fan, we talk about the centre back position, a position that we all felt because of the Colwell incident and the
Yeah.
quality that we had
Yeah.
could have and should have been addressed. Same with the
Yeah.
goalkeeper in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't a priority. And you sit there as a fan thinking, we can see this.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see there is a problem. We want to go to the next level. How can you not?
I'll be honest, just to catch you on the goalkeeper thing,
Yeah.
I do actually understand that a little bit, because at the end of the day, we've seen, not even just with players, but we've seen other clubs make decisions like this before. And they
Yeah.
haven't always turned out well, but I do understand it to an extent. So Rob Sanchez had a phenomenal Club World Cup, man, at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
he played really, really well against PSG. Now, if you're, obviously, the thing is, I still think we should have pulled the trigger on Mike Maignan 100%. Do you know what I mean? That was quite disappointing. But I understand that one a little bit more, because it isn't that we haven't got a goalkeeper, and he looked like he'd made massive improvements. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the centre-back thing, I get it. Do you know what I mean? Because Levi Colwill was not only like a consistent player, but he was instrumental to the style of play, wasn't he? That's the thing. And, if anything,
Yeah.
I'm starting to think we are seeing less of that style of play exactly as it was with Levi Colwill, because we haven't got someone who can kind of play that role.
Yeah.
I do agree about the centre-back thing. I think that we should have addressed that somehow, even if it was going for a more experienced guy and someone that we didn't get on a free from Fulham. With the goalkeeper thing, I struggle to be too mad at them for that, because at the end of the day, Rob Sanchez hasn't, apart from the red card, he's actually having a much, much better season than he did last year. That's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, the argument on the Sanchez thing, especially this season, like apart from the Man United, I can't really recall any bozo moments. But when you're going into a new season off the back of winning the Club World Cup, winning the Conference Leagues, regardless of what you think of those trophies, we've gone and won trophies. Your next step is to better that.
Yeah.
Because you want to progress. If we go through this season, obviously we're not going to talk too much about our expectations for this season. That's for a different podcast.
Yeah.
But you want to progress, and in order to do that, you do need to make signings in key areas to improve upon players to help you get there. And though Sanchez had a good Club World Cup, it's the Premier League is not 3 weeks; it's a whole season, and we've seen Sanchez, in the 2 seasons coming into the third season that we've had him, has not been able to maintain consistent form. It could be said about a lot of the players in the team, but goalkeeper particularly, across a whole season. So you would think, especially when the Maignan thing came up, to have someone like him who is a bit more consistent, has been around the game, got a lot of experience, plays the ball the way that we wanted, because that was one of the biggest things when you saw the Donnarumma things floating around, because his question marks was on his ball playing ability. Now mine had ball playing ability, like he is good on the ball, so he fit the profile. And if the idea, which we've been led to believe, is Penders is the future, and he's doing pretty well at the moment, but he's still got a lot to learn, I would rather Penders learn from a Maignan than a Sanchez. So in that kind of thing, like I get what you're saying. Sanchez has done well. We're still early on in the season, and what he did prefer it. But we're now sitting with Sanchez and a number 2 who, for me, shouldn't even be number 2.
So 100%. This is one thing I want to catch up on as well, is the Philip Jorgensen. Honestly, the main reason I'm annoyed about the Mike Maignan thing not going through is not even because of Rob Sanchez. It's because of Philip Jorgensen. Philip Jorgensen is not good enough to be a number 2 goalkeeper. And I think what I've learned about goalkeepers from him this season is you shouldn't have a number 2 goalkeeper that's really young. Do you know what I mean? Because Jorgensen needs games at the end of the day to develop. And if you're a number 2 goalkeeper who gets 1 game every 2 months or whatever it has been, do you know what I mean? He's only played like 3 times this season, hasn't he? And one of them was because he was subbed out for Sanchez. Sanchez was subbed out for him, sorry.
And that's also, just on that, mate, it's also the strange decision of why we let Bettinelli go. Because he was
madness.
not at the level of a second choice, but let's be real, he brought lots of other qualities, but he brought experience to the squad, and we basically just let that go without even considering the effect that it could have on the goalkeepers and the team.
That's probably an even bigger faux pas than not buying Maignan, to be honest, was letting Bettinelli go. I can only imagine it was contractual, because City offered him a fair wage. Do you know what I mean? And his contract was probably running down, because he was early in his 30s, wasn't he, Bettinelli?
Yeah.
So he's quite a young third keeper at the end of the day, but he was really liked around the dressing room as well. So we lost a lot more with Bettinelli than just his goalkeeping ability. And I think the problem is Bettinelli is happy to play that role, whereas Philip Jorgensen is obviously unhappy, and that's going to create
Yeah,
tension and
creeps into
stuff,
your
isn't it?
performance, isn't it, as
Yeah,
well?
yeah,
If
yeah,
you're not
exactly,
happy,
exactly.
not giving everything. So, yeah, we seem to be in the same issue as we were at the start, and you can't even say we're not as gun ho, because we are gun ho with our signings. We
Yeah,
just
yeah,
spend them on young players that aren't known
yeah.
rather than big players. And
Do you not think the truth as well is that, like, what I hear a lot is like Chelsea spent 2 billion, and I'm like, yes, yes, that is true categorically, like 100%.
yeah,
I do agree with that. But at the same time, how much of that is actually in the squad? That's the crazy thing, isn't it? When you
mm,
think about it, really, like, so much of this money has been spent on players that, and 20 million on Amari Kellerman. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Who's he's actually on loan at the club we're going to play next in the league. And they're talking about
what?
whether they're going to let him play against us or not. But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, 20 mil on him, 20 mil on, no, well, sorry, like 10, 15 mil on Matisse Amugu, who we bought and then sold
Was
the
it
next
20
year.
mil on David Washington as well, who we don't even know if
Something,
he actually
yeah.
exists?
And 20
Like,
mil on David Datro Fofana. Do you know what I mean? Again, who's
yeah,
now being loaned out and was nearly in the bomb squad. So, yeah, I definitely think these are some. It looks like a faux pas. At the end of the day, I get the idea. The idea is Renato Vega. Do you know what I mean? He's the idea, isn't it? It's like you buy him in for really, really, well, I say really cheap. 20 mil's not that cheap for one of
yeah.
these kind of players. But you buy a player like Renato Vega for 9 mil and you sell him for like 30 or whatever to wherever. Did he
Mm.
go to Juventus in the end? Where did he end up going?
No, he went to I want to say it's either Seville or Villarreal. I'll double check on that
Okay.
one.
Oh
But
no, it was Villarreal.
um,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It was
yeah,
Villarreal. So that is the idea of the project that works. Buy a young player in, get him
mm,
some minutes in the team, and then sell him on for big profit. But I think we've seen it more often than not that we've tried that, and we keep ending up with players that nearly end up in the bomb squad. David Datro Fofana ended up getting a loan out. And a few other players like you've mentioned, like David Washington and a few other guys that have come into the team and just haven't even been able to get close to it. Do you know what I mean? And we're not looking like we're going to make huge profit on these players either. So that is definitely
yeah,
a bit disappointing. But I think we should probably start moving on to the positive soon. And there's just
yeah,
one more thing that I want to ask you. Do you
yeah.
think selling Conor Gallagher was the right or wrong thing to do when we did? Because
Personally,
that was BlueCO that sold him, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
I would have kept Gallagher.
yeah,
I think Gallagher offered a lot to the team, especially under
mm,
Poch. We saw it, but also the one thing that Gallagher is he's always available,
yeah, man.
always
Fit,
available.
always
And if we
available.
had a Gallagher now, Caicedo and Enzo and that would not be getting these, not having to play through injuries, because we could rely on a Gallagher to get us through
Yeah,
a Wolves in the cup
yeah,
and not have
yeah,
to bring
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Caicedo on, or
yeah,
like Lavia got injured. Instead of bringing Caicedo on to see that whole game out, we could have put in a Conor Gallagher, and he's a Cobham. He dies for the
yeah,
club, and this is what you want,
yeah,
players like that. So for
yeah.
me personally, I would have liked Gallagher to stay. He's not
Yes,
your world star,
no,
but he's like a Mikel. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
I was
He's
just
those
thinking that.
background players that can just aid you through that, just give you a bit of help through that team, and that's what we are clearly missing, something,
Yeah,
and
man.
desperately
No,
could use right now.
it was for me. That was like, I understood it because of the profit side of it. Like we get it, academy players, pure book profit, 30 odd mil for Conor Gallagher. Was money on the books which we needed. But at the same time, man, we have been for the last 2 seasons. Do you know what I mean? We have been desperate for a player like Conor Gallagher to still be on our books. Like you say, just to fill in and rotate and ultimately push people. Like he would have just carried on getting better. Interesting. I think his time at Atletico Madrid is coming maybe to an end, and there's been a lot of talk about him going to Man United, and that'd just be crazy, wouldn't it, to see Conor Gallagher and Mason
Yeah,
Mount in
and
United
Mason
shirts
Mount.
at the same
Yeah,
time? Like crazy stuff, man. Right, okay, so those are the negatives, and honestly, we could do like an hour-long podcast talking about the negatives of BlueCO, but let's keep it balanced, man. Let's keep it balanced. Let's talk about some
yeah.
of the positives, right? So what do we think BlueCO have brought to the table that has worked? Do we like the idea that they're perpetuating going forward? And ultimately, are we going to be looking at the kind of success that they are kind of promising us we're going to get with the project that they've instilled?
Look, I think that the biggest positives that you can take out is some of the signings that we have made, because the likes of Palmer,
Yeah.
Caicedo,
Mm-hmm.
Esteval,
Yeah.
the Enzos and things like that. These were all done under them. So though we talk about a lot of their bad signings, which there are a lot of, there are a lot of good signings as well that we have made that have elevated the team and continuing to get better and better after each
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, man. Like, I look at the developing build, like core of our team that is being built, and I'm like, wow, man, we have got some top players, and some of the players that we've got are considered in and amongst the best players in their positions in world football. Marc Cucurella obviously had a horrendous start. Marc Cucurella is arguably the best left back in the world. I think the only other uh, argument to that is Mendes from
Yeah, PSG.
PSG. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously, absolutely unbelievable. But Marc Cucurella is in that conversation. Reece James is England's best right back for sure, and in the conversation with one of the best kind of right backs in world football. Caicedo in the conversation for the best number sixes. Cole Palmer on form on his day in the conversation for one of the best players in the world and a future Ballon d'Or winner. Esteval, people are talking about Esteval winning the Ballon d'Or in the future already, and he's 18 years old, which is
Yeah.
absolutely nuts. And that's been kind of supplemented with some other, I would say, like, so they're like eight out of tens and above. And then we've got the sixes and sevens, like Pedro Neto for me is one of those, absolutely solid player. As of right now, I do personally think Enzo Fernandez falls into that category as well. I think we've seen moments of magic and brilliance from Enzo Fernandez, but I don't think we've seen it consistently enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know, we've got a few obviously of the newer signings that are bedding in and stuff. You know, Wesley Fofana should have been one of those 8 out of 10s as well. And I feel like if he'd have been fit
Yeah.
for this whole time, he probably would have been.
Yeah. I suppose there's a few players that have been let down due to injury. The one thing as well, and we talk about obviously on the side that we keep selling our graduates, but we're
Mm,
also bringing in still a lot through. You've got the
yeah,
Colwells that have come through. Obviously, he was out on Brighton before, but he's been brought in. He's now been basically a mainstayer, and we are now building the back based on him. Trevor
yeah,
Chalobah,
yeah,
of course, we've had the whole turbulent thing with Trevor, but he's in now, and
yeah,
we're looking to him for guidance and experience to help us get through this season right
yeah.
now. So we're still
Achampong.
seeing those at Champong, which you know how I feel about Champong on a lot of the fan
Yeah,
base, but I've got big things for Champong. But these
yeah.
players are still coming through, the Tyreek George and things like that, which
Reggie
is
Walsh
positive for
and
me.
Genesis Antwi and
Exactly.
yeah, they're all
You
right,
know,
man.
you could go, they could have gone down the route and gone, no, we're only going to allow you to use the players that we bring in and things like that. But it seems to be that the academy is still a part of it. Now,
That's
you can
interesting as
debate
well
the
because we,
reasonings of why, but it's important for me to still see those academy graduates come through because
yeah, same.
I want to see I want to see them coming through. I want to see them getting their opportunities. Um,
There was a bit of a
yeah,
worry,
go
wasn't there? Because we changed the guy who like had been running the academy for the last 10 years or whatever left at the start of last
yeah,
season, didn't he? And it's been taken over, and that was a bit of a worry, wasn't it? Because we were like, oh, you know, he'd managed it really well. Chelsea's academy has been creating talent for a really, really long
yeah.
time, and there was a bit of a worry that that might not be the case. But seeing Reggie Walsh get minutes in the Champions League at 17 years old is nuts. Do you know what I mean? That's a really
Yeah.
promising sign.
Yeah, no, it's good. And, not just talking about the men's and the first team, the women's team seems to still be excelling.
Yeah,
It's still being invested in, which this is all part of the club. It's not just solely focused on one particular thing.
yeah.
So the investment is definitely there.
Hmm.
How they're spending their money, of course, is debatable, but the investment is there. The project, the idea of the project is good.
Yeah.
It's always about, like anything, it's about
In
the
theory.
execution.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah, for sure.
theory is good. The idea is good. Of course, if I can sit here and say that Chelsea is going to be a super team,
Yeah,
who's not going to want that?
yeah,
We
yeah, of course,
already
of
feel
course.
like we're a super team, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
We want to be winning things all the time,
yeah,
and we have seen some fruits last season. We went
yeah,
through 2 seasons where I mean, even under Poch, we came runners up in was it against Liverpool again? I feel like we've been Wembley finals, Liverpool all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I
It's
can't
like
remember
every
any other
year, isn't it?
teams.
It feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a start. Then we've come into, this season with Maresca. He's come in, and we've now gone into winning trophies again, and that's what we want to continue to do. They seem to want to continue to do that, in terms of what they're saying and how they feel about winning trophies. Because again, the idea of winning trophies is great. Once you've won it and you get the feeling of it, it just sends you to a completely new level in terms of wanting that even more. But there has been some positives, and the road, it's not as black and white as it's made out to be
Yeah, yeah,
by the majority, in terms of it's all negative, because
yeah.
nothing in life can just be all negative. I'm sorry,
No, of
I
course.
don't believe that.
Do you know there is one positive, and it's not like a really obvious one, I don't think, but there's a
Yeah,
positive that I would like to highlight, and it is the adaptability of the owners, because for the first season and a half, maybe, we saw them everywhere. They were
yeah,
becoming synonymous with the club in terms of like I saw Todd Bowley and Egbali's face so often for the first couple of years, and that I didn't love that. Do you know what I mean? One of the amazing things about Roman, and maybe even to a fault at times, he was a behind the scenes guy. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And he was the big commanding presence who sat up in the box and, do you know what I mean, and lorded over his blue kingdom. And Todd Bowley and Egbali have definitely been like a lot more involved, but. And I assume that is maybe more of an Americanism kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, let's get
yeah,
involved with the team and stuff. But what I have noticed is in the last year, at least, they have really backed off from the image of Chelsea. We know they're there, and we know they're there in the background and stuff. But Todd
yeah,
Bowley was doing like post-match interviews after every game, and do you remember like and saying crazy stuff? Obviously, there was the 4-4-3, and there was
yes,
the we're gonna
yeah,
smash Madrid 5-0, and like just silly stuff, man. Do you know what I mean? Silly stuff like that.
yeah.
So I
They've
think
definitely
that
taken a
it's like an
background
English
seat.
culture thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
They've kind of like started assimilating into English football culture, which is where they are, and that's really, really important. So that's something I want to give them credit for, and that to me shows me that they can learn. Do you know what I mean? They're not just going to come and steamroll their ideas, their
yeah,
culturisms into all of our football club. They understand that it is a different game and it needs to be treated differently. So that's one particular positive. It's not players, it's not money, it's not the project or whatever, but I think it shows a good
yeah,
sign that they are putting the club before their own ultimate, like,
yeah. And
egotistical devices.
they've also become like, I mean, even before them, everybody wanted to be like Chelsea anyway, let's be real. But
Yeah,
now, so like, we are the trendsetters for
yeah.
everything. We make a change, everybody follows suit. So it was
Closing
important
loopholes
for
all over the
them.
place.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing you could suppose as a positive. They always seem to find a loophole somewhere.
Yeah,
But they seem to be the trendsetters, and people now look to Chelsea. And how many times have you seen over the years now people want to follow the model, follow suit? So I'm also happy that they've taken a background seat, because if they were kept going the way that we're going, we could have seen that happen across the board
yeah,
amongst other football clubs.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially, it's becoming quite an American owned Premiership, isn't it? It's not far off, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So
A lot of American owners in the Premier League now as well, and
yeah,
I think it's interesting you say that actually, because I do think sometimes the way that people talk about Chelsea's American owners is like we're the only club with
yeah,
American owners, but not even by a million miles. Do you know what I mean? It's like the majority of the biggest clubs are owned. I mean, FSG are American, are they not?
yeah,
I think the Glazers are American, are they not? Obviously, City is Qatari owned. Tottenham is English, but there's obviously loads of stuff going on there at the moment as well, isn't there? But
yeah.
even some of the lower teams are like American owned teams, aren't they? So that in itself is, we weren't even the trendsetters in that. We were actually a bit late to the
No,
party.
but
So
yeah, no,
overall, then. It's kind of like six of one, half a dozen of the other, isn't it? Is like the idea, and I think you said it perfectly. I think the idea of the project is tantalising for Chelsea fans. Having a super team full of young players that are here for the now and can win a silverware
Yeah.
over the next however many years, and to be constantly filling that. Do you know what I mean? And there's one thing in particular that we haven't talked about actually, and I'm conscious that we're it's so easy to talk about this. We could go
Yeah.
for a really long time, but what we haven't talked about is the multi-club model. Now, we've done lots of positives and we've done negatives, sorry, and we've done lots of positives. So I think, there's kind of a bit of both in this respect, isn't there? So talk
Yeah.
to me about your opinion on the multi-club model, the Strasbourg connection, and any future connections to clubs that we might buy in the future as well.
Like you said, man, it's one of those that's 50-50. It's got positives, and the positives are it is a place that we can send players to learn their trade, especially being that we've got a lot of young players coming through, build, adapt to football and life in football. And we can keep a close eye and a close watch on them. And if they're not necessary, we can sell them. We can also, bring players from that side being, coming through their academy and things like that. So on one side, it's good. The other side is it potentially destroying Strasbourg because of it?
Yeah,
Because we've basically are using them as a feeder club, like another academy in a sense. We're literally sending about 5-6 players every season over there, and then the ones that are coming back on loan, we're selling like 2 or 3 of them. We obviously recently sold Ben Chilwell. We've got Diego Moreira, who's out there. At the
Matisse
moment, we've got
Mugu
Matisse Mugu. We've got Kendrick
and
Pyers on loan, Mike Penders, Mamadou Sarr.
yeah,
So and if you look
and
at
Manuel
them,
Omega.
a lot, Manuel Omega, you look at them, a lot of their first team players
Yeah,
are either previously Chelsea owned and been
yeah,
sold, or on loan by Chelsea. You look at it, you're taking Omega in the summer, Mike Penders
yeah,
potentially coming back, Paez potentially coming back. That's already, 3 or 4 of their main starting players. Paez is in and out of the team, but at least Omega, Penders and things like that that are just going to
so
be
yeah,
taken away, and they are going to have to rebuild on that. And I get the frustration from their fans, because if it was
yeah,
happening to my club,
yeah,
I'd be
for sure.
fuming, because
Yeah,
we want the best and we want those players to stay. And I don't think on the negative side that they're taking that into account with the way that they run Strasbourg. But
yeah,
another positive, so I'll go positive, negative, positive, is look how well Strasbourg are doing now
that's
than
the
they
thing, isn't
were
it?
before. Like, they're pushing for, I think they're like 3rd or 4th in the league at the moment,
Yeah, they're
pushing
4th in the
Champions
league
League
at the moment, I
spots.
think.
They, could they realistically think that this was going to be where they were 2-3 years ago? I don't
Yeah.
think so. So
So I've got I've got like it kind of like you, man. I've got like a 50-50 opinion on this. As a Chelsea fan, I love it. But as a football fan and a guy that lived in France for 4 years, I completely understand why they're not a fan of it. And for those people that are unhappy, the results to an extent are secondary to the culture of
yeah,
their club. So French people, one thing I absolutely loved about living in France is they are so proud of their culture, man. They're so proud of their culture. And that is pertaining to everything: their food, their drink, the way they socialise, their sports teams. They are really, really, really proud people. So France is reasonably anti-capitalist anyway. Do you know what I mean? The idea of a capitalist conglomerate, which is what they see Chelsea and BlueCO as, buying up one of their clubs and turning it into like a Chelsea academy, is really repugnant to a lot of Strasbourg fans. And even like, I agree with you, man. At the end of the day, look at where they are. Like they got into Europe this year. They're in the Conference League this year, so that's already really good. They're looking like getting a shot in the Champions League next year, and I think that could be the best thing for them. And I don't just mean for the team doing well. I think for the fans as well, because and I'll tell you why. So I've looked into this a lot. So if Strasbourg get into the Champions League next season, or if they look like they're going to, BlueCO will imagine Chelsea are going to get in the Champions League. They don't have to sell. They have to announce about 2 months before that they are not going to have a controlling interest in Strasbourg for the season that they are in the Champions League. So what that means is the running of the club will be handed over to an intermediary that doesn't have connections to Chelsea, right? It will also limit the amount of players that we are allowed to trade between each other to 2. right? So we wouldn't be able to sell, loan, or buy more than 2 players to or from Strasbourg. So what that would instantly say is if so kind of what you were just talking about, if they get into the Champions League, right? So you might see some deals done in January, for instance. If they get into the Champions League, and they've got Mamadou Sarr and Kendrick Pires or whatever, will only be able to loan them 2 players. And you'd think at the moment, I've got a feeling that what's his name, the goalkeeper, Mike Penders, I've got a feeling that he's going to stay there next season. I think it'd probably be Mike Penders and Mamadou Sarr, maybe, because they're 2 of their really consistent first teamers. Obviously, they've got Panicelli, who's an amazing striker, and midfielders they can go out and stuff and buy themselves. So I think that would actually be great, because that would give them Champions League football and the ability to, the same manager with the majority of the same squad, and that would give the chance to more so reconnect with the fans because they'd be distanced from Chelsea. The problem with that, it's not a negative for them. It's maybe a bit of a negative for us. Is we can't then use them next year the same way that we have done for the last 2 years. So we lose that option. So if Strasbourg are looking like getting into the Champions League, I actually think that probably means we will accelerate us buying another club for next season. Because, like I say, if Strasbourg get in the Champions League, then the whole multi-club model from Chelsea's or from BlueCo's perspective to funnel stuff in and out of Chelsea, you're going to lose that opportunity. And the only other solution is to not let one of those teams be in the Champions League, and you can't do that to Strasbourg, man. If Strasbourg get in the Champions League next season, you have to let them in it. You have to.
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to point out, we're not the only club that do multi-club models, by the way.
No.
A lot of people seem to, at least the way it's portrayed, it's like we're the only people to do. Every other club does it.
It's like City and Girona, isn't it? And they were both in the Champions League last season, and that's what happened. City had declared Girona were going to be managed by a separate entity for last season, so there wasn't the same
Marianakis, didn't
connection.
It, from Forest, and was it that and Olympiacos, because they were potentially going to be in the same competition. Didn't work out in the end, but he had already put things in place to
that's what
do
Crystal
that.
Palace didn't do, which is why Crystal Palace got demoted, because it's not even it's like a controlling share is considered to be more than 25%, and one guy owned more than 25% of Palace, and I think it was 25% of Olympic Lyon. So he was basically seen to have a controlling interest, and he actually sold his rights to Palace, but he did it too late. So that is what literally the reason that Palace got demoted. So it's tenuous, and there's lots of clubs that do it, but no one really uses their clubs the same way we do, though, do they? Let's be honest.
No.
We've known about City's multi-club model for years. No, and we're
it's also because of the players, isn't it? The amount of players that we have brought in and will probably continue to do so. If you lose that option, how many we sold and loaned then in the last few years? It's become
it's crazy. It's a lot.
Quite apparent. Every summer we know players are going to Strasbourg. That's our first thing that we think about in terms of players that are going to get loaned, or players that are young and not really on the precipice of anything, probably going to get sold there to develop their career even further. So, it is one of those things that is literally 50-50. It's good in some sense, business-wise, developing players and moving things from a Chelsea perspective. It's a negative on a Strasbourg side in terms of they could lose a lot of their best players. Not every player they're going to get is going to be good enough, which what do they do with them? But a positive for them is they are playing good football, they are pushing, which will eventually generate more money. And like you said, if they do make the Champions League, could potentially help easing those ties to BlueCo significantly if it was to happen.
Yeah, I think having another club as well. So the last one that was seriously talked about was Santos, and that's a really interesting one. I did a video about that, and I actually had a comment from a Santos fan who was really for it, and he was like, I would be really happy with that, because we would then have the financial muscle to compete in our league again. And that works even more really from Chelsea's perspective, because you never have to worry about cross-contamination of competitions, right? Maybe the Club World Cup, although we'd have to win the Champions League to get that. Do you know what I mean? So that's much more unlikely. But as far as the Champions League and stuff goes, if BlueCo invest in Santos, then you're not going to have the same issue that you've got with Strasbourg, where it's about do we you know, if they get into the Champions League or whatever, we're going to have problems. Like, you'd be able to use that, you know, just kind of as much as you want. So yeah, really, really interesting with the multi-club stuff, man. Oh man, there's just so much, you know, I think we're going to have to wrap it up soon, but there's so much that we haven't talked about. There's the rotating door of managers, do you know what I mean, that's come in, and what that means, and there's so many little things, but you know, without trying to get too much into anything, because we could literally talk about this all day, man. That's the truth, innit? And if you enjoyed this chat by the way, let us know in the comments, man, and we'll do a part 2. We'll cover a lot. Let us know. It
could be a whole series on this one, to be honest.
Yeah, man, 100%. So give us a closing summary of the BlueCO era at Chelsea so far and how you feel about it.
Look, honestly, I think it's left much to be desired in terms of what it could have been if they took the idea, which I still like the idea.
Yeah.
But if they spent the money in the right way, if they were a little bit more switched on to football, it could have been much better. And it still could be, but there must be a change.
Yeah.
And we talk about it all the time, every season, and we're sort of waiting. There's the talks of Dave Fallows coming in. Is he going to be the change?
He's in now
for the recruitment of players. So he's in, he's signed. Are we going to see a slight change? So for me, if they want this to work, because let's be real, they are going to be here to a minimum of 2030, whether you like it or not, they are here.
Yeah.
In order for us to push to win things, the strategy has got to change to achieve the model that they want.
Yeah, that's true.
And if they do that, get some experienced players in, build this team correctly, not just throw a bunch of youth players in and hope something happens. Give them a little aid of experience. They will achieve the model that they want. They will create a successful football team. And I guarantee if they do it that way, they will have a very loyal fan base. The problem is they're going about it in the wrong way, and they are sort of deterring fans away from them, which is a problem. And there's not much. We talk about them taking a step back, but there's also not much communication from them for us as fans to understand why they take this route and why they're continuing to do so. Like, if they come out and tell us about why they're not going down adding experience to it helps live understand. Whether you accept it or not, that's down to you.
Yeah, but I think you know, just extrapolating from what we've seen, I think a few reasons for that are the actual, you know, the main reason that they don't want to tell us about why they're doing what they're doing is because a big part of it is based on money, and no fan wants to hear we're doing this because it will be financially successful for the club. Do you know what I mean? And that's something a couple of big Chelsea YouTubers have talked about, and I do agree with that. Do you know what I mean? I am like, I don't care. But, you know, I care about Chelsea making money in order to be able to support the team. But, you know, as a football fan, you don't care about your club being a successful brand, do you? It's not really like, you know, at the top of your priorities. So, yeah, stuff like that. It's definitely, you know, I don't think we'll get that level of communication, truth be told. In terms of why they're not buying experienced players, I'm not really sure, man, to be honest. It definitely, I mean, they have said, haven't they, if the right deal comes along for the right player. It feels like they are just like turbo loading the squad with youth at the moment. But, you know, with the hiring of Dave Fallows, like you said, I can't see that being the de facto method going forward in the future. Do you know what I mean? It's like Dave Fallows isn't going to come in and be like, oh, yeah, here's a 19-year-old. Do you know what I mean? He's probably going to come in and be like, here's a 24-year-old that doesn't cost very much, but I think he'll turn out to be a really good player. A la Andy Robertson, for instance. Do you know what I mean? That kind of Andy Robertson signing is a signing that we could do with a few more of, I think. So
yeah, no, 100%, mate.
Wicked, man, wicked. Yeah, we'll wrap it up there. This one's gone on even longer than my last one, man. And like I said, man, there is so much more we could talk about. And guys, if you would like to hear me and Kai talk about this some more, then please get it in the comments. And also go and check out Kai's YouTube channel if you haven't already. Behind the Dugouts, he talks about football almost, no, you do like two free uploads a week, didn't you?
Yeah.
So week, 2 or 3 uploads a week talking about football, match previews, reviews, and think pieces, much like myself, but we have a lot of different opinions on stuff. So go and check out his channel. I will leave a link to it in the description. Drop a like if you've made it this far. I always forget about my call to action when I'm doing podcasts because I just get really wrapped up in the conversation. But guys, thanks very much for sticking around until the end of the video if you did. If you enjoyed this one, I implore you to go and check out the last collab I did with Jay from Talking Chelsea, and we spent 40 minutes talking about Enzo Maresca. So, nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day. Me and Kai will catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.